without reservation how excited I was, and I still am, of working with the Bookmark Alliance. It was actually, to my surprise, that I was approached by Adrian in particular, and I was surprised how you all picked up on the fact that I had a book out and you gave it enough importance for me to participate with your company. I'm thankful for it, and I would recommend others to do it, and I will continue working with the Bookmark Alliance. Yes, I wrote the book not by my own volition, let's say. It was more on the insistence of other folks. They felt that what experience I went through was worthy to be written about. As far as I am concerned, much like other folks who've gone through difficulties like this, such as veterans from the wars, they're reluctant to talk about things. In fact, they more often prefer to forget. And that was my case. But I gave it a lot of thought and consideration about what others said. And I said, well, I should write it, perhaps to be of some value to society, to have message, something to say that would convey an attitude in people that may be good for the future. And that was the reason, really, I wrote it. Of course, the book was written overall about my experience in Greece during the Second World War, when I was taken there as a young boy. I was 4 years old, born in the United States, but my family transferred back to Greece. They were immigrants, my parents, but preferred to go back after being citizens, of course, but never losing their love for America, we can say that. But unfortunately, although we had a very nice life prior to war, when the Germans invaded and the Italian troops, of course, life changed. Then became a country of occupation by these forces, Nazis and Fascists. And it was a duration of about 4 years of this experience. And of course, it's inspiring enough to write about it, as I said before, for the reasons I gave, to convey the message. Well, the choice of themes, or a theme, was already in place, and that was the experience of the war and the whole occupation. And in fact, that is very rich in reference, and you don't need much inspiration when you're actually recording what has happened. In fact, in the back of the book, I'm saying that although fiction can do a lot of things, it's much better to convey a biography in life that one has had. Yes, well, again, the motivation, as I explained, was the conveyance of a message, always in my heart, because I wanted to expand on that as much as possible. In fact, it brings me to another focus, shall we say, because the experience of the war is really the beginning of a sequel, because coming out of the war, I bring that experience which has affected my life, which caused me to write yet another book that I call The Seven Gates to Freedom, which is really more spiritual and conveys a message. And this one is for the betterment of the human being and the outlook of life in a positive manner rather than negative. In other words, coming out of an occupation and a war has never been positive for anyone, cannot be. But if you develop the attitude, you can convert negative to positive and make a life that's worthwhile and help others do as well. Very much so. They're all real characters. I did not have to create any characters in the book that you would do in fiction. All I had to draw from was the people that actually were around me in that part of my life. So it was really more a description than it was a creation of the characters. From the standpoint of creativity, I think that has more to do with how well I wrote it, that I was creative, and not so much making up a story. Yes, I've been asked that many times before. It's very hard to distinguish a particular individual as being outstanding. Why? Because everyone was in the same problem. So, although I may not be familiar with somebody else's problem, it was there. And they could tell a story as well as I can. So in describing the individuals, I only related what went on. And I could not single one out. Now, when pressing the point, and I've stated this before, if we like to bring out an outstanding person, would be someone like a young man. He was about 16 years old, and he went up on the Acropolis, which is the major point in Greece for history, culture, and the whole ethnic identity, where the Parthenon is. And the Nazis went and put the swastika up there. And that was really an insult to a nation. So the young man went up one, I believe it was at nighttime, and he brought that thing down, and he abused it. But he had to pay the price because they later arrested him and tortured him and had him for execution, except for the interference from other sources, including, I believe, the Vatican, to spare his life. But he remained ill all his life because of that. Another one could think of a relative who was forced to go to Germany in forced labor, and he worked in the factories, and then they extracted him from the workplace, took him into a hospital, and extracted a part of his body to do their experiments. Now, this kind of thing, of course, stands out in one's mind. And we can say they're heroes, yes, but everyone else was a hero in so many other circumstances. So I cannot single out anyone in particular. Yeah, the style of my writing is what probably stands out, because I write from my heart. I don't write by contemplation. I write as it comes, and it has to be real. And when it is like that, often it's unique. It's not what people do when they write. Usually, when you write, you want to think a lot about it and, let's say, correct it again, reshape it, and all that. I didn't do that. I wrote as it came, and I think I wrote directly, and that would be, to me, inspiring to others, because they would probably sense that when reading the book. Yes. If you notice, I say, what's in a life? I did not say what's in my life, even though it's a biography, right? Why? Because, as I say, it affected everyone. And therefore, the title has to be generic. So we take what's in a life, what's in anybody's life. It happens to be my case. That's why I put that title as it is, What's in a Life. Yeah, for writing this book, it has not been as vigorous to do research as it has been, for example, when I did my economics, when I got a master's, I did my thesis, or later when I did my dissertation for a doctorate, where you actually do research, heavy research, very intensive. But in this case, the research was my memory. And I was surprised, having written the book at the age of 90, I was surprised myself how much researched in my memory of those days. Amazing, really, to the degree that I would not only visualize it, I would feel it, I would live it, I would smell it, actually, because things came alive. And that's a good reason also to remind you why I said people, after a battle or something, they don't want to relate these things because they're upsetting, you know. So the research was really researching my memory. Well, yes, the ability to maintain a threshold of humanity. When you go through situations like this, where every day, every instance, you hear of crime, you hear of death, you hear of destruction, pretty soon the natural way for a human being is to adapt. They cannot outlive it unless they adapt. So pretty soon you become accustomed to what you see around you and what you experience. And I call that the threshold of tolerance. And in order to tolerate that, you need to lower your threshold to be able to absorb it all. And when you do that, you lose a lot of civility. Civilization gets set aside, and what comes in is brutality. And it's acceptable because everybody tends to go the same way, and it becomes a way of life. And I hope that we do not see this in America, ever. So actually, this is what I like to convey in the book. Avoid it. Precisely what I said before this moment. To maintain a positive attitude in life. And again, I go back to my book, The Seven Gates. The Seven Gates to Freedom is an outgrowth of this experience. If you read that book, you will see the positive aspect of it. For example, we speak about parallel universes. I'm totally against that thought because a parallel universe is a repeat of the same universe you're in. Now, who would want to relive the same thing? It's not going anywhere. It's repeating itself. The definition of parallel universe is that. So, in my Seven Gates, I don't speak about parallel universes. I'm speaking of expanding circles, of expanding consciousness, of becoming larger within yourself, your soul expanding and finding a higher life. And when that happens, in fact, your life improves because even your physical age begins to slow down. Now, I'm sitting here. Next month, January, I will be 97 years old. Most people say I don't look like it. I don't think I do. Well, why is that? It's because of what I practice. I live in another level on purpose, and that positive has come out of the experience of the war. People ask me that, and the patent answer I give, even doctors, MDs ask me, I say to them, depends where you live and what's your reason, and I don't mean your home address. Yes, and the perception of the expansion of life. This we forget too often on earth because we calculate everything from our center of life. Human beings, we look and we say, oh, I'm 100 years old, or I will be 100. I'm 60. Oh, I'm a middle age. I'm an old man. No, no, no. If you think that life could be 2,000 years or 100,000 years, if you're 60 years old, you're just a kid. And as long as you believe that and you live it, you will find it to develop in your physical life. And here's the evidence. Basically, that as a whole, all the folks who went through that ordeal of the occupation were of the caliber I'm speaking about. Human beings tend to be better, not worse. Yes, they adapted to the lower level I spoke about before. Nevertheless, they recovered as well. Because remember, there was a period after the war, they had to readjust. And they did readjust, and not only in Greece, all the countries. But that's human nature as a whole. So yes, there is an aftermath that does occur. Well, in the same way I just described, that when you read the book, and please do, and I'm not trying to sell the book, I'm trying to push the ideas, if I could. That's the main thing in my mind. It's not the selling, that's secondary. If the ideas catch hold as a society, as a whole, let's say America, and we all start thinking in positive terms, there will be no need for the negative occurrences that happen, because we will be empathetic about others' lives. We'll understand, because we'll understand ourselves. It begins with knowing yourself first, and projecting and being able to understand somebody else's needs, and you fulfill your mission by adjusting yourself to that need. And if society does it as a whole, you have a civilized society. And this is what civilization is. It's the laying on of layers of learning through the history that we come to where we are today. We have learned from the past. We should never forget it, never destroy the past. That's a very bad mistake. We have to draw from the past the best and use it for the best in the future. Destroy the bad, of course. I hope all of what I just said, and maybe more, and much more, that I could be taught something as well. And not that I'm trying to teach anybody anything. It's just I'm conveying my thoughts. But I would like to learn too. So yes, if they read the book and then follow up, I keep repeating myself, I'm afraid, with the 7 gates to fulfill the whole panorama of what I'm writing about. Yes, the very same thing I'm saying right now. Please don't hesitate to acquire the book one way or another. Read it. It's going to be in print. It's going to be, or it is already, in e-book. It's available. Easy to read, by the way. The language is simple. And yes, pursue the book. And once you understand where I come from in the first book, the second book will be the completion of the reading and understanding the philosophy I'm trying to project. You can get a copy of my book from Bookmark Alliance, from Barnes & Noble, from Amazon, as well as Walmart, Creative Books, and Sweet A's Cafe.